So this weekend I was lucky enough to get away for some time in Sheffield and then the Peak District. After breakfast, myself and my partner planned a walk up what's called the Roaches. We had about 2 hours to walk up the large stones before having to head back down south. Over breakfast we could see for about 50 miles in most directions from the conservatory where we were eating. But right in front of us though were the dark grey rocks sticking out of the ground. The white bright sky behind them was creating a dark contrast between the two worlds of earth and sky. An image came into my mind that I wanted to capture. It was of a human figure standing in between those two conflicting worlds of light and dark. We'd been told how cold and windy it was on the top of the peaks that day, so I knew that the subject, in this case my unknowing partner who I just kept letting walk ahead of me, ideally had to look a little blurred as she climbed. I wanted a bright white sky against a browny rocky terrain image with a blurred figure of a human like the wind was blowing through them, threatening a little bit all the time to lift them up, as it did when we actually reached the summit. As we walked up the hill, I kept practicing with exposures and frame rates and angles, twisting the camera ever so slightly in my hands as I took the pictures to create a little blur over a prolonged exposure. Sometimes I got it right, sometimes I got it wrong, but I knew that there was going to be only one or two key moments across the whole walk where I could get the elements I wanted all at the same time. I practiced with the trees and the rocks as we progressed. That's just a shot of a weird tree actually, because we were talking about Blair Witch the night before, and it just reminded me of the scary twig scenes. You'll see here where I took the opportunity to try and get the image I wanted, but with subjects that presented themselves. That's a good thing to do if it's appropriate. Just grab the image and use it as practice. It's not a bad effort here, but I still had my own specific subject that I wanted to capture in the right moment. So the practice was useful, but it wasn't the final image that I'd set out for. I knew I was running out of time as we were getting closer and closer to the top, and also the rain was setting in more and more, so naturally I was worried about my lens and the camera. I had to bring together a good exposure, the hands twisting to create the blur effect I wanted, the white sky against the darker foreground, and the blur of the wind on the human form to get the desired image in my mind. I noticed the rock to the left and the brown in the foreground, which I had imagined earlier whilst having my breakfast. The angled rock wasn't quite actually planned, but you just have to take those little gifts. I snapped 3 or 4 times whilst flicking and twisting my wrist, and it was this image which virtually matched the planned image I had in my mind before I set off. I think ideally I would resize it slightly before print, but overall to me it summarises the walk and the spirit of the elements and the day. A windy rocky hillside that threatened to lift its guests and push them back whilst making their eyes slightly squint by the brightness of the light. Also, and only in my practice shots as we progressed, I captured this shot, which I think also perfectly illustrates the feeling and experience of the walk. If I were to choose 2 from the process applied that day, it would be these 2. Having planned the image I wanted to capture in my mind first, then by following a process, I was able to fuse together the varying ideas and areas I needed to draw together to capture the key image that would illustrate the story from the event. Planning, process, capturing and experimentation are always key in professional production, and it was nice to come away with these 2 pictures that for me really tell the story of the day.